It's hearing me clearly and precisely versus, you know what I mean? So if you think about characteristics of drum and bass, everything's usually really punchy, really clear. Clarity is very important because it's fast. There's a lot going on. And if you're not really precise with what you're doing, as in like focus, not necessarily as like on the grid and stuff. It's like if there's loads of drums going on, it doesn't matter like what the riff or the bass line is. It just becomes noise because you can't really hear it all at the same time. Like in other genres where you can have everything fit pretty full spectrum and full on. In this, depending on what you have going on and what you want to like achieve sonically, the tempo makes it so you gotta focus. Otherwise, it's going to sound messy. And not a good messy, like some jungle with like breaks and stuff flying around and all this stuff. I mean like a bad messy.
Oh man, you hate to see that.
So this original sample, yeah, let's go with the chops, right? So here's what it sounds like with processing. And without processing, can you hear the difference? It's like, it's hearing me clearly and precisely versus, you know what I mean? And it's not like the original song necessarily sounded like that, but when you bring it to this context, like drums aren't going to come through that. If you looked at the spectrometer, like just a big like honking presence at like 200 or 500, all this. It just sounds like, anyway. So let's talk about what I did to alleviate that. So as I go through this channel strip of 20 or so plugins, like 15 are actual mixing. Anyway, as I go through these plugins, know that it wasn't like, I need to do this, then this. It wasn't like methodical at all. It was more like, I hear what I'm hearing and let me try and, you know, do what I can to not hear that. So if I hear like frequencies that are peaking too high, get rid of them with EQ. If I hear like weird like dynamic changes because it's live, like a little bit compression. If I hear like odd like frequency spectrum things that I can't really be handled with an EQ, like get out like Soothe. They're like a different kind of plugin. And then there's some things for like character and reverb and stuff, but like it's all experimenting to get it to fit. Anyway, speed it up. So here we go. Versus EQ. What is it? No EQ? Let's try it. No EQ. EQ on. So we're getting rid of low end. We're getting rid of a peak at like 200. But that other peak we talked about at 500 is still there, like wreaking havoc. So what did I do for that? Went to Soothe and just went right on it. And then what are we're like at 1K? We're not even on. It kind of cleans up that region. Let's go between like 630 and like 1.5K. That's like where a lot of the peak is, right? And so if I turn it off, then I'm gonna turn it up. Go too far? Now that's way too much, but if you heard like sort of in the sweet spot where it was, it really opened up the sound stage and got rid of that crazy peak that we didn't want. That peak has gone away. I'm here all week. And I could go a bit further, and I probably did in an EQ. Okay, so this next EQ is balanced because the left channel was a bit quieter than the right channel. So we listen to it without, and then I'll click it on. Like you can see in the meter that the right is higher than the left. So now I'll flip it on. And it's about even, okay? So again, this kind of maintenance EQ, we're trying to get it to the good starting point. So that's on another EQ. cleaned up a bit of that mid-range again, around 300, for basically where, you know, a lot of the noise is. I'm not going to say this was directly after those, like when I was actually working with the sample, because usually for me, when there's EQs after EQs like this, it means I came in later on and added it in for a mix purpose. Because as I'm going to show you, there's like compression and some saturation and some other bits. And as you start cranking those up, like if you put EQ before or after, you know, it's like order of operations. Like if it's before, it has an effect. After, it has a certain effect. So in this case, I wanted to alleviate a bit more of that like nasally sounding. And then here we go. Big one. What does this even do? Play without. And I'll play. Turn it on. So I'm getting rid of kind of that sweet spot of just like evening out all these little like harmonic peaks that could go a notch out, but Soothe just kind of makes that a super easy thing to fix. Afterwards, we have some bus compression, the Native Instruments bus comp. This kind of just helps even out the sound. Like it's not super obvious. It's more just taming the peaks for like the like every time it goes P, it's like P and then drops down. P, and you just want to even out those peaks. That's all it is. Your normal compression. Then we have EQ. Now this is where kind of mixing starts to happen. I'm adding a little shelf above 2.5K, taking out a little bit of the mid-range, lower mid-range at 160, adding a bit at 650. Nothing in the low end, nothing in the super high end. This is just kind of add a bit of character. So I'll play without. And then I'll turn it on. This adds a bit of clarity, a bit of top end, like sheen. And I use this EQ specifically because I like how it sounds. It adds character in a way that like normal EQ doesn't. Auto pan. This actually does pan back and forth a little bit. So it's doing that. And you can sort of hear it. I'll play it longer in a second. If you're wearing headphones, this will make sense. If you're not, put on headphones. It just adds a little bit of stereo information that isn't like present. It just adds a bit more fullness to it. I'll play it out. See if you can hear the panning. Play the song. Extreme. You can sort of see it in the metering too. It's happening. It's subtle. It's a nice soundstage kind of thing. The next plugin is a thing that crashes. I'm not going to show you, but it's basically kind of like a preamp saturator sort of plugin. Little Radiator by Sound Toys works super well. All right, now we're getting into some mixing stuff. EQ is taking a little bit out of the sides. Let's listen. Because without it, it sounds like. And then with it, because it's taking out some of the sides of those low mids around 175, 200 hertz, basically that big like wide bell. When you take a bit out of the mids there, the top sort of opens up by contrast. And I didn't really need a lot of mid information going on because I didn't. Yeah, that's about it for that one. Next plugin, another EQ, a stupid amount of peaks. This is like getting out harmonics, another thing. Some of this could be consolidated, but again, like these sort of choices happen way after the other ones, you know? So let's play it without. And now I turn this plugin on. So when I flip it on, like a lot of those harmonic peaks that are just building up because it's constantly looping the same thing are being tamed. And it's sort of like making the sound feel a bit sterile when you isolate it like this, but within the full mix, it really works. Yeah, these are all just peaks. Even this one is like peak just in the right channel because there's like something going on in this ear that's not going on in this one that's causing a peak. Yeah, next. Another EQ. This is for really cleaning up the low end and a bit of the sides. Passive EQ, it's my favorites. No, it's just the low end actually. Yeah, anything under like 40ish hertz, which shouldn't be there anyway. But it's making sure like after the compression and like the saturation that we'll usually add in a little bit under there that I already filtered out in that low end, it's making sure it's catching that. And then the rest is filter, low pass, your usual. It's that. Got a delay. Built-in Studio One delay are my favorites. Kick and snare side chain. And there's a track spacer for the vocals. And then it just goes into a reverb. And Bob's your uncle. You know, basically this sample needed a lot of work just to fit within the context of drum and bass. You know, we talked about at the beginning, drum and bass is always clear, focuses on clarity, punchiness, really taking advantage of the sound stage and having everything just be sonically accurate and with focus. And if I would have done nothing to the sample, it would have sounded like this within really punchy drums. And I don't really need that. If I was making something else, I might not have done this much work. If I was making a different style of drum and bass, not like a dance floor tune, but maybe something a bit, I don't know, like I would normally do, you know, then I might not do this much, but this needed it. It had loads of crazy peaks and harmonics and build up in crazy areas. And like, yeah, it just had to go in and get rid of it. So maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't. That's what it took to make the song sound how it sounded. And if I were to do anything different, I would, but I can't because it's already out there. Anyway, any more questions, leave them in the comments. Hope that was helpful. Peace out. Peace that's gone away.